We're joined now by our chief political analyst, John Dickerson, host of The Daily Report, and senior White House correspondent, our political correspondent for us, Ed O'Keefe. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. That wasn't one bad performance from the president. There's been a lot leading up to this. I've been covering the age concerns for 2 years, and at times you were made to feel crazy for even asking the question. And voters are worried. We've seen it in polls. You've got some information from inside the Biden camp on this. But first, I just want to go to you, John, big picture. Americans are processing something that could be very monumental today. What stood out to you?
They are. I mean, what they're processing is, you have two candidates. The country has said they don't want either of them, told pollsters that regularly, and they got a debate that affirmed their underlying view that they don't like either one of these candidates. The bigger problem is for the incumbent president who, as many supporters in his own party have said, he had one test last night, and that was to overcome these questions about his age by his performance. Joe Biden a lot of times will say to the questions about his age, he will say, just watch me. People did for 90 minutes. Nancy said in her piece that some Democrats believe that Biden can still rebound. Last night was supposed to be the rebound from these questions. Gavin Newsom says you can't just throw someone out after one bad performance. That's incredibly true. The question is in the White House whether those who are closest to Joe Biden in their heart of hearts think last night was closer to Biden's best performance than it was his worst performance, which is to say that there is a problem embedded with the candidate that won't go away.
And they kept saying, he had a cold, but this is the thing. When you have a cold, there's many things you can take for it. We didn't know he had a cold until he stood up. A cold doesn't force you to lose your train of thought. A cold doesn't force you to just throw things out randomly that to many people made no sense. And so how long do we continue to act like that we didn't see what we just saw last night? I thought for many people, the word I keep hearing, it was very painful to watch.
Well, saying something that is different than what people saw and experienced themselves, that's Donald Trump's trick. And then what Donald Trump did last night, so you don't want to be in that position if you're trying to argue that this is what Donald Trump does. But in the debate last night, Donald Trump rewrote the history of the January 6th attack on the Capitol. He rewrote the history of Charlottesville and his reaction to it. And he rewrote the history of the election that he lost, that he claims he won. That's his lane. And he performed it, as he always does last night, with an unending river of lies and distortions. But the question is whether Biden is now an impediment to Democrats being able to make that case.
All right, Ed, so what are you hearing from the Biden campaign? I see you have a slight smirk on your face. And also, what are you hearing from the Democratic Party?
Right. Well, the Biden campaign says, look, we raised a lot of money last night in small dollar amounts from people who were watching across the country, the kind of grassroots fundraising they wanted from an event like this. The problem is the perception, as John was describing,
raising money and raising concerns are two different things.
Exactly, and raising expectations or hopes and dreams of your party. He didn't do that last night. So the conversations we've all heard from friends and family and the guy on the train about is he too old because there's something we can do to get rid of him are now happening among the people who could do something about it in about 8 weeks. 8 weeks from this morning, the party will wake up with a nominee. Will it be Joe Biden? Right now, probably, because there's no sense among those that are having the conversation about what can we do, about what to do. Is it the vice president? Is it Gavin Newsom? Is it Gretchen Whitmer? Is it someone else that someone steps up?
So why are we hearing so many whispers about
well, we have whispers right now,
replacement.
And let's see through the weekend whether or not they turn into actual substantive conversation, whether they get to people like Jim Clyburn of South Carolina, the First Lady, the President's sister. Those are the kinds of people who turn to him and say, sir, it's time to consider stepping aside.
But Ed,
Lesser until people were talking, those people are talking to him.
Right.
This is just conversation.
But, Ed,
it's happening among those that do something.
You said last night while we were on the air that people were already calling for him to step aside. Last night, in the middle of the debate, you said that.
House Democrats who were gathered together in Washington watching it, governors or people who work for them. Those are superdelegates. Those are the ones that can move the levers of the party to somebody else. But the conversation about who would that be? Do we have enough time to do it? What would that do to a general election race?
Joe Biden has the legislative record to run on. He can't explain and communicate the power of that record to the American public. He's had many, many opportunities.
And that's exactly.
Among other things, it's a communication job, Tony, as we talked about.
Two things can be true for Democrats trying to wrestle with this question today. Joe Biden can have an admirable record that is something that the Democratic Party should run on. And he may also be incapable of running on that record in a way that gives people confidence about 4 more years in the office. Those two things can be true at the same time. But the important point Ed is making, I would just add to it, the Democratic Party has a tradition of hand-wringing and, use the term they use, bedwetting. So there are a lot of Democrats who will say, yeah, there's all this chatter, but there's always a lot of chatter. What makes it different, of course, is that the stakes are so high, and the chatter is coming from not the usual quarters.
Not the, yeah, exactly. I'm more in touch with the guy on the train or my mom's neighbors in West Virginia than political strategists, and they're worried.
Yes.
You know, people are worried. They think it's sad. That's the other thing I'm hearing from people. So.